Hello and welcome to the Oddschecker podcast. This time we are previewing glorious Goodwood. We sat here a couple of weeks ago, and gave you plenty of Ascot winners, so I hope we can do the same here. To my right is Oddschecker's very own Andy Holding, our tipster, whose column will be going up every day for all the races. And to my left we have professional punter Mike Spence. I'm your host George Elek, and without much further ado, we're going to get straight into the racing. This is day one at Goodwood, and the Unibet handicap is the first up. Setting Sail is the 4-1 favourite. Beringer is 15-2. Jazeel 10-1. Soto Sizzler 11-1. Nicholas 12-1. 16-1 Bar. Andy, as ever, I'll start with you. And who are you going to be looking to kick off the Goodwood week in that first race?
Yeah, I'll probably spend a little bit more time in the next 24 hours trying to work out what I'm going to go for here. But there's no denying that Setting Sail is the nicest horse in this field. I've put him up a couple of times already this year. Funny enough, in defeat, so I'm not the greatest judge of working out whether he's going to shine or not, but he's been victim of circumstance more than anything else. When he has got beat, he was a little bit too free the day when he ran at Ascot behind Sextant. He didn't handle the track at Epsom next time out. That was the day when I went for him quite strongly, finished out the frame, but either way, it was still a good run. He beat Rice Hall the time after on the July track, and he won Saturday. An excellent run at York, of course, in John Smith behind Pivoy, viciously competitive handicap, arguably the best mile and a quarter handicap we've had so far this season in terms of numbers and speed figures. And he ran another cracking race there. Ideally, he just wants nice ground. I don't think he wants extremes. Goodwood forecast, I think, is fairly favourable for the next 24-48 hours. He might get the odd rogue shower. I think there's a bit of bit of low pressure coming up to hit the high pressure. There might be some showers bubbling up, but that's it's just localised, isn't it? And Goodwood can be very hit or miss. But I think he's certainly the most likely winner, or certainly a worthy favourite anyway from where I'm sitting. You've got a lot of usual suspects in this race that may or might not improve. I thought Soto Sizzler was an interesting runner. He probably might want a little bit further in an ideal world. He's won at the track though several times, and I think that's the key with him. And he, along with Setting Sail, has got form round undulating tracks. He goes really well around Epsom. I think he's worthy of a look down the bottom of the weight. So early days yet, but those would be my two that I'd be looking at if the prices were right tomorrow morning to put up: Soto Sizzler or Setting Sail. Yeah,
as you say, tomorrow morning, because we are recording this on Monday. Just so you realise, I'm looking at the weather forecast now, and it suggests there could be some rain coming in Goodwood around 10 or 11 o'clock with some pretty nasty wind as well. So maybe not the best day for those going. And Mike, I know you're going as well, so make sure you wrap up warm and wear your waterproofs. But more importantly than what you're going to be wearing, what are you going to be backing in that first race?
So I agree with Andy. I think Setting Sail probably is the right favourite. But I think at Goodwood you need a horse that's really going to travel around the course. They've got to travel very well, which he will. They tend to go very fast in these handicaps. So you've got to travel through the race and also have enough ability and class to be able to get yourself out of trouble if needs be. He's got everything in his favour, really, Setting Sail. But I think he's probably the right price at 4-1 in a handicap like this. He hasn't been missed, but he'll run very well. Certainly wouldn't be putting anyone off him. But there's one horse in here which I think is primed for a really big run. And he will be my bet. And as a trainer that goes very well here, Mark Johnston has a lot of winners at Goodwood. And I think Aquarium is ready to strike. Andy mentioned the form of the John Smith's Cup, which it's not called that anymore. It's now called the John...
I just couldn't think off the top of my head. I just thought I'd go with that.
Diamond Jubilee Cup.
Yeah.
And it was actually quite taking that. I do think this is good form, but Aquarium's a horse that needs everything to go right. He's not that easy. And he tends to miss the break, and it didn't really help him at York because they went very slow in this race. And only the first horse and the third horse were quicker than Aquarium through the last 3 furlongs. But he was so far back after his slow start that he only managed to finish 12th out of 21. But I was very taken with how he finished that off. I think this horse had excuses. The run before that at Haydock, he slipped coming around the bend. I just think that's a run to ignore, really. There was also another race where the first two home, Kelly's Dino and the Golden horse that slips my mind, both sat there 1 and 2 throughout, and nothing got into it from off the pace. He ran very well at Royal Ascot over 1 mile 4, which I don't think really suits him, but there isn't a handicap there, and I think it was just a case of having an Ascot runner. if you watch that, he stays on very well down the straight, and that effort just peters out in the last furlong. He's never won over further than 10 furlongs, and I think dropping back to this trip will really suit. The handicap has been kind to him. He's dropped £2 again. He's off 101 here. And what might look like a bad draw to most people at Goodwood, because you think you want to be drawn low, the draw stats for the 10 furlong course suggest that you really do want to be drawn higher. He's in 14, and given the way that he actually runs, I don't think that's going to be any negative for him. He's sure to be dropped in just on the way that he starts so slow. At Goodwood, over 10 furlongs, they also come around the upper bend. They get about a 4.5 furlongs worth of a straight. They really get rolling for a long time before they actually are asked to quicken. And I think this horse will really come with a real rattle down the outside. He's got good form, second behind Mountain Angel at Epsom in April. He's fantastic form. He's £1 higher than that. And his form going around the bend is a lot better than his form on straight courses. If you're able to just put a line through them, his form would read a lot better than what it currently does. I think he's primed for a really big run. He likes a bit of cut, but it's only good ground there at the moment. It's not going to get too much faster than that for day one. And I think 14 to 1 looks a very big price.
Well, bigger than 14 to 1. If you're looking at Oddschecker at the moment, you can get 20 to 1 at William Hill, you can get 20 to 1 at Bet Victor. So if Mike's tipping up at 14s and you can get him at 20s, yeah, might not be there anymore once we finish recording, I'll tell you that. But Aquarium there for Mike, making a very good case indeed in the first. And the two taking it Andy's are at the moment Setting Sail and Soto Sizzler. Setting Sail pretty much 4 to 1 across the board. Soto Sizzler 11 to 1 with Sky Bet, Bet Victor, Coral, Betway, Black Type, Red Zone, and a couple of others as well. So that's the first done and dusted. We'll move on to the second race tomorrow, and that is the Vintage Stakes. And I know, Mike, you may have just given us quite a long answer and you're ready for a rest, but I'm going to come back to you straight away because you, of course, have a runner here in positive at 10 to 1. I'll run through the card quickly, though. Pinatubo, the very hot favourite at 7 to 4. Vicinari 3 to 1. Lope Fernandez 5 to 1. Mystery Power 13 to 2. Positive and Platinum Star 10 to 1. And 100 to 1 Milltown Star. You mentioned just before we went live here that this is probably the hardest 2-year-old race to try and land. So talk us through the placing of Positive and how you're feeling about his chances.
Well, he's a horse that we've always loved. I mean, from day one, we've thought he was a really classy horse. And before his debut, this was always the aim. We thought he was really that good before he ran at Salisbury. And he was a horse that we had this race penciled in before he'd even won his maiden. He got the maiden done in very good style. He couldn't have done it any better. And we've stuck to the plan, really, to come here, despite this race being what is the hottest 2-year-old race, certainly, of the season. And I mean, it's an absolute cracker, isn't it? With Pinatubo, for me, he sets an incredibly high standard. I'm not sort of going to dress our horse up and say he's that I think he'll win and whatever, but he's certainly there. You know, we're not really running away from anything, and his work at home has been fantastic. It's a big ask on his second start. I mean, it caught Vicinari out last time at Newmarket, really, and that just shows how big an ask it is. You've got to be a really, really good horse to win on your second start. He's the least experienced in the field, and he is up against it on that front. But he's got a good draw. He's very professional. I think he's going to run a good race. I'm hopeful. When
you own a horse like Positive, you know, where so much is at stake here, and if you do go and land the spoils tomorrow, it could be, you know, a bit of a game changer for everyone involved. I mean, how are you feeling when they're going to post? How are you feeling during the race? It must be quite a buzz.
It's hard to, you can never really say how you feel. It always changes from race to race. I'm quite calm. I'm quite rational. I keep very calm, which is probably to do with the betting part of things. In that I'm quite level-headed. I think I'll probably get quite nervous when they go to post tomorrow. It's always Salisbury's almost was on his debut was almost more nerve-wracking because he's a well-backed 6-4 favourite.
Sure, none of that was your money though, was it? So.
I mean, the only thing that can happen is that when you go somewhere like that is that things can go to plan and he wins, and it's more a relief than sort of anything else. You know, it's anything other than an impressive win on what you're sort of going there and you're disappointed. So I'm quite happy that, you know, there's no pressure on us tomorrow, so I think I'll be more relaxed tomorrow than I actually was at Salisbury.
Well, we know that Andy doesn't mince his words, so it'd be no shock here if he tells you to draw a line through Positive straight away and move on to the rest. But Andy, how are How are you eyeing up this one?
No, I certainly wouldn't be derogatory with regards to chances of positive because he clocked a good time first time out. Not what we could call a Group 1, Group 2 time, but certainly a pattern time anyway. So
it was the fastest 7 furlong time at Salisbury for 16 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Obviously, on a day where lots of times were good, it's like if a track record's broken at Newmarket, it doesn't mean to say that all the other times were, desperate, and that because all the other times are very good as well. I think Raffle Price she broke the track record for 2-year-olds the other day at Newmarket. There was about 3 or 4 of the track records on the day, so it's all relative. But positive, I thought he did really well. He drifted across the stand side, or was intimidated across towards the stand side, if my memory serves me right. And the third horse has won since Only Madden, Martin Mead's horse. So that form and the time figure's been boosted. But this is a really different level to what he took on at Salisbury, with the greatest respect to him. It's a nightmare for me, really, because figures-wise, I've got arguably the 3 best horses all running together and trying to work out which one's going to come out on top, which one handles the track, and which one's going to keep improving is the $64,000 question. I put up Mystery Power last time when he won the Superlative, and he did it the hard way because he was always on the sharp end. I liked his attitude, and he stayed on very strong. I thought 7 furlong was no problem for him. Visionary is probably been my biggest disappointment of the season, perhaps for the last couple of seasons. I'd like to think I've got a fair handle on the 2-year-old form this year with the numbers I've been keeping, and this Visionary, I was banging on about him for ages in my blogs and to anyone that would listen to me, really, and a lot of other time guys were very enthusiastic over him as well. Unfortunately, he fluffed his lines when it ratted the most. He was 7-2 with top prize William Hill for the July Stakes when the book opened up, I think the week before. And for me, I was like, I've never been so excited about a prize or Rick. I thought, that's on the fastest 2-year-old got this season, this has got to be taken. I put out a 4-point win on the side, which I very rarely do.
Smashed into 94, I think, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah, it was. It got gradually whittled down before I had a chance to write it up. But it was still 11-4, 5-2 when I put it up, and it went off 4-6. Literally every man and his dog wanted to back it. I mean, people were taking odds that were ludicrous. So you get a point where the shrewd time men have backed it, but then the people that join in who don't know about the numbers have a little bit. But then it was even money on the morning. You thought, well, I can't be any shorter than that. And it went into 4-6. Yeah. So there was a whole wave of confidence behind this horse, and he just didn't quite deliver, albeit he ran to a fair level, but he ran nowhere near the level he did on debut. He probably might have just bounced, which is sometimes what happens when you get a 2-year-old that runs such a phenomenal figure, and they've still got that running in their legs when they go back to the track the next time.
How did the figure of that second run compare to the first
Nowhere
one?
near. Nowhere near, no. So if he runs back to his maiden level, he would have a serious chance.
At 3-1, which is best price at the moment, can you take that chance?
I'm not going to have a bet in the race at the moment because I like Pinatubo as well. Pinatubo clocked the fastest 2-year-old time at Royal Ascot, and to do that in the Cheshire, which is normally the weaker link of the 2-year-old races at the Royal Meeting because it's only a listed race, tells you how good he is, and he absolutely battered that Lope Lee Fernandez, who Godolphin thought was Ballydor thought was an absolute certainty. And he left him for dead. The turn of foot he showed was incredible. And then you took in the likes of Mike's Positive, who could be anything. I think this race is a nasty one. And you've got 7 runners as well. It's not as if you can think, well, OK, I don't want to back Visionary and Pinatubo at short price. I can have a little bit each-way thieving bet on either Mike's Horse or Mystery Power. Yeah. Psychologically, just 2 places. It doesn't really do anything for me. So at this very moment in time, a race to watch and to savour. But I don't think I'm going to be putting anything up in this race.
I have a feeling that might change by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, Andy.
I don't think it will.
How pretty gutted that there's only 7 runners here for your positive?
No, I don't think so. He's probably not an each way bet anyway. I think I'd like to think if he'd have a good chance of winning, and we're going to find out where we are, really. I mean, that's the best thing about going for this race is we'll find out where we are. I mean, it's a slight disappointment from an owner's point of view that the race is as hot as it is, because it would have almost been nice to have some of the normal renewals of this race aren't as good, and it would have been nice to use it as a stepping stone before really going into the depths of a Group 1. But this is a Group 1 with a Group 2 name, really, at the moment. if it was a Group 1, you wouldn't get any different horses.
No.
These are the best horses around at the moment.
So just taking it away from positive, are there any other prices, any horses that you think might represent a bit of value?
I think it's a tricky race. A lot of Goodwood, it's very different to Ascot because of the bends and how quick they come up, especially over 7. And Visionari's in 1. Frankie's hand is almost going to be forced. He's got to go forward here because Frankie loves to go forward anyway. He'll try and dictate this race. And then Ryan's in 7. I think Ryan's a bad price at 5-1 because Ryan's hand is he's got to decide very quickly. He's not going to want to be 3 wide on that bend. He's got to go forward or he's got to go back. The thing for him is that in a race like this where it's a Group 2, they're all going to want to be 2nd or 3rd. No one's going to want to sit last. So I think it's going to be trappy. I have Pinatubo's officially rated 110. I have him 122, which was as high as I got too darn hot last year as a 2-year-old. I thought his time at Ascot last time was simply phenomenal. Visionari, he's a weird one. As Andy said, everyone was all over Visionari, and his time on debut was one of those where it was so good, it was almost too good to be true. And it was so good. It was almost like
if he peaked on debut, wasn't it?
Yeah, and
he can't get any better.
To run to that figure, I'm not even sort of bigging it up when I say it was not far off sort of figures that Frankel would have been putting on it as a 2-year-old. So, that's why I went off 4-6. The figures were ridiculous, but I'm always quite skeptical of them.
And it's not the first time we've seen a Mark Johnson horse that wins well on debut fail to kind of...
No, but at the same time, I think he does want 7 furlongs. I think this is just a really good race. For me, I'd be backing... If we didn't have a runner, I'd be backing Pinatubo at 13-8, sort of take positive out of it. I just think that he's a very, very smart horse. And I think he sets a very high standard personally.
The thing is about Pinatubo, you watch him in all these races, the best part about every single victory has been the back end. He's not slowing down at the end. He's always going fast. I've got all these sectionals of all these 3 wins. Wolverhampton, very, very powerful off the corner, 22 and change. The same when he won in the Wood Cup. He was probably about 8 behind the Johnson horse, Misty Grey, at the Tattenham corner. Absolutely battered him. Yeah. And the same at Ascot. I wouldn't say he looked to be going nowhere, but he still had to make up a lot of ground on some good horses, and he left them for dead. And that's the thing with Goodwood as well. It's downhill, it's sharp, but you need horses that get home there. That last furlong and a bit, they seem to be dying on the backside. And that's what... The only problem with Visionari, he might just be hanging his chin out. He's going to go fairly hard from the front, and if he does go too hard, I don't think he'll outstay Pinatubo.
Right, so therefore, it's hard to say what we're tipping up there, but Mike seemingly leaning towards Pinatubo. No bet for Andy.
But yeah, it's a race I'll just watch.
On to the Lennox now, the Lennox Stakes, and Zaki is the 11-4 favourite. Hey Gaman is the 4-1 second favourite. Space Traveller 6-1. So Dance a Lot 13-2. Swados is 8-1. Speaking Colours 11-1. 14-1 bar. Andy, how are you approaching this?
Yeah, a lot of course specialists here, a lot of regulars. Britton Rock has won this race before. Obviously, he's a 9-year-old now, and 33-1 represents his price. Flaming Spears won here before, beating Handicap Company. Sedan Salot, I think he won this race last year, if memory serves me correct. And Old Soudois, who's a regular, I think his loyalty pass is regularly stamped here, isn't it, in a race like this? He'll have a chance. He's got the cheap pieces on as well, first time out, David O'Mara's charge. And he ran in that race at Ascot last time out, which unfortunately we had the ill-fated victory of Beat the Bank in a dramatic finish. And I think that race really is the key, or one of the key angles coming in here. Because at the furlong pole, you couldn't name the odds for Zaki. And Beat the Bank is, under pressure, but in Beat the Bank style, he rallied really tenaciously and got back up in the shadows. So connections of Zaki have thought, well, is it the mile that he doesn't quite get? Or is it the fact that they haven't got a race for him over the mile, that he's not a Sussex Stakes horse, so they think, well, there's only one other good group race for him here at Goodwood to roll the dice, and this is it. Is this just the round peg in the square hole thing? Sorry, the square peg in the round hole thing. So I think he's the right favourite, Zaki, based on the numbers that he produced last time at Ascot, because it was a very strongly run heat. Other than that, I think Haygaman's got a big chance. He ran in a phenomenal time figure I got at the Curry the day for Romanised. That Romanised all of a sudden seems to have come of age. He's gradually worked his way through the ranks this season. He just seems to be flourishing at the moment. And albeit Haygaman didn't have enough tactical speed to hold him off late on at the Curry, that's a very stiff track. He still beat Safe Voyage quite easily. And Safe Voyage has been the best 7 furlong horse so far on this side of the RSC. So I think he's a massive player. And if they ride him right, i.e. don't try and make the running and go completely gung-ho, I think he's the archetypal 7 furlong horse that you need for this. He's the specialist at 7 furlongs, whereas Zaki, he hasn't run over 7 furlongs since his 2-year-old days, as far as I can recollect. So those are the 3 that, again, I'm looking at, your Haygamans, your Soudars and your Zakis, but I've got to stay loyal to that Curra time. I think Romanised is a genuine Group 1 horse over a mile now, and Haygaman hasn't got a Romanised to run against here.
Haygaman currently 4-1 seems to be the way that Andy is leaning. Frankie Dettori on board, and it sounds. What we're saying early on, it looks like a couple of our bookmaker partners might be running scared of some Frankie and multiples tomorrow. Mike, on to you next, and how do you agree with what Andy said, and which horses are taking your eye here?
Quite similar to Andy here. Zaki for me, I think he'll be a big drifter tomorrow. He's dropping down to 7 for the first time in ages, and I know I said about the draw in the last race, but if you have a look at horses drawn higher than 8 on this 7 furlong course, they've got a terrible record. And once again, Ryan's going to have to force his hand here, and the way he runs, it's very unlikely that he's going to go forward, Ryan, but at the same time he's now dropping in trip, and maybe that's what he'll do, especially as the only pace angle I think in here is Haygaman, who I like, but I think he's beatable. And he only ran 10 days ago. Big effort there, really big effort. He had a hard race. I'd be willing to take him on personally. And I think Sir Dancelot's been forgotten about here a bit. The ground is crucial to him. If you were to go through his form and sort of put a line through everything where it was on the soft side, he has some very good form. Last time out was soft ground, but it was the only race they could get into him in the summer because he'd been a non-runner a week before that. Haydock on soft ground. Before then, he ran over a mile in the Lock-in stiff mile, didn't get a home. And before that, he'd run over 6 furlongs in Hong Kong at Sha Tin. And then all 3 runs at the back end of last year when he was in England and France were all on soft ground as well. I just don't think this horse has had his conditions since last summer. And if you then pick up his form, he runs over 7 furlongs 3 times last year, all on fast ground, and he wins all 3 races. For me, I including this race, and I think he's been absolutely primed for this. I think he should be about 7-2 here. And I think he's the one to beat. He's a 5-year-old here. He's got course form. He's a very, very good horse. And I think he's going to sit right on Frankie's tails throughout and come through and win. The only race which says it was good is France, but if you watch the replay on that, it's soft as can be out there in their good ground. Are there any concerns with you that he just doesn't retain the ability he had last year of those runs? Or no, not at all. I just think everything's just not been in his favour this year so far. He doesn't like soft ground. I just think he's a 7 furlong horse on fast ground. He ran perfectly well in the Lock-in. So that was his first run of the year. I think he ran very well. I think that was a fine run. He doesn't really peak until midsummer. I just think this is, the fact they tried 6 furlongs twice at the end of last year and then went up to a mile. The thing is, there's just not many 7 furlong races for him, and this is his trip. You talk about the fact that he won the race last year, and this, I guess, is a question to both of you because, Andy, you speak often about, in the Royal Ascot podcast, about how important it is to have course form. Do you feel that it's similarly crucial at Goodwood to show that you can handle the track?
Oh, yeah, without doubt. Even more so than Ascot in many respects. I think one of the reasons that Sir Lancelot hasn't run quite as well as expectations this season, albeit he was a 33-1 shot in the lock-ins, is down to the fact that David Ellsworth has had a real rough season. I think it's 106 days since David Ellsworth had a winner. So when I look through horses like Sir Dancelot and Rip Off, the ones that are running really well and still showing a fair level, you've got to be massively upgrading these horses. If Sir Dancelot doesn't win here but still runs well, you've got to pin him down as a horse. When that yard does finally kick into gear, and it's got to be sooner rather than later, good trainer like David Ellsworth surely won't go a year without having trained a winner. Then you want to be making hay when they do start to kick into gear. That Rip-Off ran an amazing race considering the yard's been flat as a pancake. I just couldn't back a horse despite its obvious claims or claims of sorts when a yard's just been so out of form. So I'd be struggling to get as enthusiastic as Mike is over Sir Dancelot just because of the stable form.
Wouldn't want you to agreeing on too much. That's good. 13 to 2.
His reasons are right,
Yeah,
but it's just the yard's out, Nick.
Just a bit of a concern about the yard's form. But as I say, Andy decided with Hey Gaman at 4-1. Sir Dancelot is 13 to 2 for Mike. Currently 10 runners as well. So barring some serious rain tomorrow morning, you should be fine with your 3 places for an each way bet on either of those two. Another race that stinks of an each way play is the Goodwood Cup. Stradivarius is the 8-11 favourite, Cross Counter 4-1 second favourite, DXB 5-1, and then a 16-1 bar with Wells Fargo the next up in the betting, all the way out to Harpo Marks at 66-1. Currently 9 runners as it stands at the moment here. Andy, I'll come to you here first, and we'll talk about Stradivarius, who again, you kind of run out of superlatives, I guess, and that 8-11, whilst it looks pretty skinny for a course of this, for a race of this nature, I guess you're a brave man to take him on.
Yeah, he's like the Novak Djokovic, isn't he, of horse racing. You always look to see if you can find chinks in Novak when it comes to Wimbledon, and you think, well, he's in the right half of the draw, and is his form on grass good enough? And you make cases out for Federer and Nadal, what have you. And in the end, you look back and you think, why have I opposed him? He's just such a bomb-proof horse in every way. I can't find a chink in his armour. You think, well, would it be Goodwood that might just catch him up? But Goodwood, he seems to come alive there. How about soft ground? He might not act on soft ground like he did at Ascot, but he still comes through and wins. And I think he's one of those horses that kind of like just showboats a little bit. He knows he's better than everyone else, and he just seems to win by the narrowest of margin. Almost like makes it exciting to give the crowd something to cheer. Frankie's just riding out of his skin, so him and the association with the horse are just a marriage made in heaven. John Gosden's just prepared him specifically for every race perfectly. He seems to have got the right amount of work into him and saved a bit for the next one. The only possible danger I could see would be cross counter. He's back to his absolute best. He certainly wasn't when he took on Stradivarius the last day, albeit he was ridden a long way out of his ground, and he had to make up a lot of ground on soft ground. I think better ground and back to Goodwood will suit him, and of course he beat DXB last year in the 1.5 mile race for the 3-year-olds. And he's a good globe-trotting horse cross counter, and I think Godolphin would have probably got him a little bit more fine-tuned than they have. He seems to have just been a little bit of a slow burn this season. And if some firm went 4-1 and given me quarter the odds about cross counter, then even I would find that very difficult to resist that, thinking, well, I'm on a complete bet to nothing, because as far as I could see, this is a 3-runner race. With the greatest respect to the likes of Wells Fargo and Dashing Willoughby, they would have to do something that they haven't done already in Group 1 company over this distance to figure. So, yeah, without boring everyone senseless with the obvious facts and figures about the obvious horses, I think cross counter is probably the only bet I could muster up here.
So yeah, cross counter at the moment 4-1 is with Ladbrokes has a fifth of the odds, I'm afraid, Andy.
Well, that'll do. I don't mind that.
That'll do. I doubt that's going to be there much longer. I wouldn't have thought, irrespective of what the price is on the exchange. Mike, how are you eyeing up this one?
I don't think I could add anything really. Stradivarius is such a good horse. I think if he was ever going to get beat, it was last time at Ascot for me. Just think the soft ground was a negative. The trip and everything on that day was a negative, and he, comes through it and he looks as good as ever. I mean, if anything, I think this trip probably suits him better, and his record at Goodwood's fantastic as well. He's so hard to beat. I mean, cross counter. I just don't think he's quite as good as Stradivarius, and yeah, DXB is going to go very fast here because they didn't make enough use of him in the Gold Cup. I mean, he stays all day. this horse. He could go around Goodwood twice and still be wanting further, I think. I think that'll probably play into Stradivarius' hands even more. Take the tactics out of it, just go fast and make it a serious 2-mile race. I mean, yeah, for Stradivarius to get beat, he has to be below his best, I think. If he turns up on his A game, none of these are going to beat him.
Do you think Stradivarius gets the credit that he deserves? Generally, I mean, we talking kind of a couple of days after that incredible King George win for Enable, and there were the comparisons with Frankel and all, but maybe just because he's a long distance horse and it's not quite, the profile isn't quite as exciting as some think, that and maybe because early on his career he wasn't as unbeaten, he wasn't the horse that he is now taking on when he was a bit of a younger horse.
I think he probably just about gets the credit now. I mean, it's just the stayers just never quite get the credit they deserve, really. I personally think he wouldn't run too badly in something like an Arc myself. I think he's got plenty of speed. Some of his wins when he's won at York, they've gone really slow and he's quickened up well. I'm sure the Arc's never going to happen, but if I owned him, I'd have had a tilt at the Arc, I think, to see what he's like. But
well, let's hope Bjorn Nielsen's listening, and we'll take that on, because that would be some story. Those are the 4 first 4 races tomorrow on the first day of Goodwood. The last few races, of course, I'm sure Andy will be having a good look at them today, and we'll have some notes in his column tomorrow morning. But currently there are no prices, and neither of these guys are too keen before seeing a price to flag any up. So make sure, as ever, that you keep an eye out for Andy's column. We're recording a podcast and a video for the Wednesday, the Thursday, and then combining the Friday and the Saturday as well. So if you've enjoyed this, then please do look out for those. And if you haven't already, then please subscribe to the Oddschecker YouTube channel, where you can find all of our preview content hosted there.